Hello and welcome to another Psalms devotional. My name is Jesse, and today we'll be going through Psalms 9 and 10. And there's a reason for that. So why don't you take a moment right now, pause this video, and go ahead and read Psalms chapter 9 and chapter 10. Go ahead. Well, welcome back. So like I said, we'll be doing Psalms 9 and 10. And there's a reason. When I was actually doing my studies on this to do this devotional, some background, I realized that in the Septuagint, it treats these Psalms as one. And now, if you don't know what the Septuagint is, now this is a document. It's the Greek translation of the Hebrew Scriptures, the Old Testament, and it was done back in, I believe, 130, 150 BC. So it's a pretty reliable ancient manuscript, ancient translation from Hebrew to Greek. And in this document, Psalms 9 and 10 are considered one psalm. And it's the only psalm from Psalms 3 to 32 that it doesn't have a title. Psalms 10 does not have a title. So that's another reason they think that 9 and 10 go together, because 9 has a title and 10 doesn't. The other reason is because 9 and 10 also have a common theme. It's about justice for the oppressed. And then there's a common phrase that's seen in both of them that is the only place that you'll find it in the Old Testament. And that phrase is times of trouble. You find that in 9:9 and 10:1. So if you take these Psalms together, they present this really cool structure. Some sections go with other sections in Psalms 9 and then goes with Psalms 10. So 9, 1 through 12 go with 10, 16 through 18. And this emphasizes God rescuing the oppressed and defeating his enemies. The second parts that go together is Psalms 9, 13 through 14 and 9, 19 through 10, 15. And this describes the oppression that, of the enemies, like what the enemies are doing to the people of God, to the innocent. And then 9, 15 through 18, this emphasizes and affirms that God will bring about his justice. And so that's what's cool. And these are all the reasons why theologians believe it was one psalm, but for some reason we have it split. So not only has God brought justice to the psalmist, is what we see in 9:4, but he will set up his throne and judge the entire world in righteousness. So the first thing I want you to get out of this is not only is our God known for love, known to be slow to anger, rich in mercy, and things like that, our God is known by his justice. I mean, what else would you expect? A God that is going to set up his throne and who's going to judge the world in righteousness, who's going to bring about his justice and take care of the oppressed. What else would you expect but a God who is known by his justice? The wicked will utterly be destroyed. It talks about in 9, 3 through 6, and then verses 19 through 20, and then chapter 10, 15 through 16. And they'll be sent back to the grave. They'll be sent to where they deserve. They'll go back to Sheol, as the Hebrew word, which is, another word for hell, I guess you can say. That's the underworld, right? God will break the arm of the wicked, which resembles God making the enemy harmless. He will take care of this situation. The punishment will come, and at least in part, because some of the punishment will come while the wicked are here. Because what we read in the psalm is some of this punishment will come from the work of their hands, the pit they have dug and the net they have hidden. Chapter 9, verses 15 through 16. It's pretty much sharing that some of the stuff they're doing, they're going to receive their just punishment. But then when God comes to judge the world, they will get the rest of it. And that's when they'll be sent back to the grave. That's when they will experience the second death. That's where they'll be separated from God. And that is something to rejoice about. Because sometimes we feel that we're forgotten. Sometimes we feel that the enemy or the wicked thrive. And that's what this psalm is kind of going through. It's like, look at all this stuff going on. They seem like they're thriving. What's going on? Are you not seeing what's going on, God? But that's not the point. That's not the case. God does see what's going on, and he will take care of it. Which brings me to the other thing that I noticed in this psalm, is that when God comes, when the punishment comes, when God judges the world in righteousness, this also means rescue for the oppressed. You see, he will show himself as the helper of the fatherless, the avenger of blood. He will be the one that is our Savior. Jesus Christ, right? He is our Savior. He's the one that comes and helps us. But this is what you'll see when he comes to handle this and take care of the wicked world and the things that are going on, and the things that need to be wiped out. And it is evident to the psalmist that God's judgment has not yet come yet. That's why I said it will at least come in part for right now. Because in these psalms, he speaks in the present tense that the wicked, they abuse the weak, they mock God, and they prosper. And so what's going on? The oppressed feel helpless and forgotten, as if God doesn't even see them, or God is hiding his face from them. And, even though when they need him the most, they're like, where are you? And to all appearances, for the oppressor and the oppressed, it kind of seems like God is not a righteous judge, that he doesn't even care what's happening. But even though we're reading that, and you may feel that way sometimes, what we see is the psalmist coming back time and time again in these 2 chapters is David, the psalmist, keeps coming back time and time again, stating that God does see what is happening, even when others think that he's blind or he doesn't. I mean, the original Hebrew is kind of insistent about it. We read, "But you, O God, do see trouble and grief. You consider it to take it in hand." You see, God does remember all that is happening, even when others imagine he has forgotten. So the psalmist predicts that the wicked who have forgotten God actually are the ones, and they imagine that God doesn't care and has forgotten all about their evil. They're the ones that actually themselves are forgotten. You see, the wicked, they believe God has forgotten them. And that you can read that in 9:17 and 10:4. And they imagine that God doesn't care about their evil. That's 10, 11, 13, and 15. But they themselves will be forgotten. And we read that in Psalms 9, 5 through 16. They will be sent to the grave. They will experience that second death, that separation. So it's funny. It's kind of it has some irony in it, right? They feel that God's not paying attention. They can do whatever they want, that God is forgotten, but soon they'll be forgotten if they don't change their ways. And we will be rescued. So even in those times when it seems that God is not watching and may never intervene, we may feel that way. We have to remember that our God is a God of love, a God of mercy, a God of hope, a God of peace, but he's a God that is known by his justice. And when he enacts his justice and he judges this world in his righteousness, we will be rescued. And those that are living in a wicked, sinful way, they will receive some of their punishment, but the rest will come when God comes and judges this world and separates the sheep from the goats. And they will receive their just punishment, to be separated from his presence, to be sent back to the grave, to be forgotten. And we will be with him in paradise. And this is something to rejoice. This is something the psalmist understood. Even though he was explaining all this and venting, he came back to the fact that God, you know all things. God, you are going to take care of it. God, you are just and you are love, and I will trust you. His people must continue to trust him. We must understand that he is aware of our circumstances. He's attentive to our cries, and he will strengthen our hearts until he judges the world in righteousness. So we have everything to rejoice about this holiday season, and everything to rejoice about this Christmas time as we celebrate the coming of Jesus Christ, that moment where the promise became reality. So that's all I have for today. I hope you enjoyed this psalm. For me, I would suggest that you go back and read Psalms 9 and 10 again. There's just so much to unpack from it. Maybe throw something in the comments about maybe something that stood out to you or something that spoke to you. And it would be encouraging to even hear some comments about how you can apply some of these truths to your life so that you can shine and have the attitude that we see here from King David, the psalmist that wrote these psalms. God bless, and I'll see you next time.